Yeah, HM Hart here again. Do people with BPD really have that much power? They certainly do hurt. They certainly do wound. They certainly do horrible things that they're not going to be able to stop doing. No excuse for it. But they're not going to be able to stop doing what it is they do. The untreated and the undiagnosed especially, until significantly treated, they're not going to be able to stop what they're doing. No matter how many promises they make on a Hoover, or when you might reverse Hoover, the on and off again of it all, you're going to get promises that they might actually want to believe that they can deliver to you. But more often than not, it turns out to be empty promises at best and lies at worst. But to this question, I really want to put this out there for you to think about this way. Does the person with BPD really have that much power over you? Oh, they may have tremendously hurt you, etc. and beyond, and that is their responsibility, and there's no excuse for that. But they don't have the kind of power that people who don't, because of codependency largely, don't know how to let a relationship be done when it really needs to be done, or be over when it's over, or when the door of ghosting is slammed in your face. Don't open it. There's so many reasons. It's so compelling, as I alluded to in my last video, and just from a different perspective. So here, I just want to state outright that people with borderline personality are not powerful. I mean, sure, a lot of them can get into, like, especially more severely impacted, they can get into some ridiculous behavior that really speaks to how disempowered they really are. But it can be very, sometimes dangerous. It's emotionally dangerous and psychologically dangerous, and it can get other ways dangerous. And it can be horrific, and it takes such tolls on people's lives. All of that without a doubt. The other side of it, though, is how people continue to blame them, and whether or not, like, are you focusing on they're responsible for what they're responsible for. But if you're still putting your energy over there in any way, shape, or form, you're still giving them too much power. Yeah, of course they really affected you in a horrific way, and more. And they're responsible for that. But what is your choice going to be now? And how are you going to stop, these iterations of no contact that aren't no contact? Full no contact is the only way forward. And people are like, I'm not ready, or like, I went no contact, but then I heard from her or him, and how and why. And people don't block everything. And this is really difficult to do if you have codependency, because it's not something that you really learn. And the woundedness from childhood in codependency that's still inside of you and very much affects your choices and what happens to you, who you choose to be in a relationship with, not what they do to you. That really is affecting you, and it affects people in ways that they might not be aware of yet. So this idea that I'm not here as, I'm not a BPD apologist. I'm not trying to say you shouldn't say or think whatever you do about the person that hurt you with BPD or NPD. Absolutely, you should feel whatever you feel. The only thing about that is the more you concentrate on that negative, or if you're feeling anger or worse, or even stronger emotion, not worse, but stronger emotion, quite understandable and probably healthy, and definitely part of the process for how much you've been hurt and beyond. But this idea out there, this narrative that they're so powerful, and this question of why did they do this and why did they do that and why did they do the other thing, I want to ask you, codependents, in a really compassionate way, why do you need to know that? I know it feels compelling, like you really need to know that. But why do you have to hold up your own growing some more awareness about yourself in this, so that you can help yourself out and get help and get into a healing recovery journey, why so much focus still on all that? Which, yeah, okay, there's a reason for it. But the key thing is to empower yourself now. You need to focus less on them. Not more and more and more to get the answers, to try again, to take the Hoover, because all of that is just, and then the narrative out there is, but like, and he or she kept doing this or that to me, which, if it's really horrible stuff, it's still not excusable. But when people go back to it or believe the false promises that might be well-intentioned for some with BPD and others are just straight up lies, the point is that when somebody's ghosted you with BPD, or the relationship is over, or you needed it over, but now you're missing them and it's really painful and you don't know how to be with yourself. This is what it really is true for a lot of people with codependency, in one way or another. You just don't know how to be with yourself and feel okay, and now you got all this other pain to deal with too. But the narrative across the internet is, understandable. But then I'm just saying, there's a lot of people out there with codependency disempowering themselves by continuing to wonder about the borderline, whatever it is, the narcissist, whatever all happened, which is their responsibility, but which for most of them you can't hold them accountable. You need to hold them accountable, but they're not going to take the personal responsibility. So you need to pull back, which is really hard in all this pain, to take your own personal responsibility for how you're going to stop engaging and pursuing, like I said in another video. Because the point is, it is the disempowered, and you get more disempowered by the way they treat you, the disempowered, really wounded, hurt, confused, and sometimes lost and feeling like you don't know yourself anymore, stressed out, exhausted, maybe not physically well even right now, codependent, that gives across the internet this narrative, which fine, whatever people want to express and say, absolutely. But it is a narrative that gives more power to the borderline or the narcissist than they could possibly have if you could just find a way to stop going forward in your codependent pattern long enough to go, wait a minute, which is really painful and difficult, and pull back and start to look at yourself and find your own healing and recovery, and not so much be focused on them for a while. Because, as I work with clients, when they're in their own healing recovery journey, yes, it includes talking about the relationship and what happened. And I can answer a plethora of questions for clients. I know this stuff inside out. I can tell you why he or she did this, that, and the other thing. It's just because there's only so many patterns in all of this. But the bottom line is the answers that you're seeking by disempowering yourself as a codependent, which empowers the cluster B more in a really not intentional way. The way that you're disempowering yourself to try to get the answers you need is like, I don't want to get into dichotomous stuff here, but if there is a healthy way to go and an unhealthy way to go, which is a dichotomy, but I want to use good and bad, people with codependency keep choosing the unhealthy route. And that's not, it's because what codependency is all about. It's not like you just want to do that to yourself. Like, this is really compelling and painful and confusing stuff. And people lose themselves. And then there's the Stockholm Syndrome. And there's all kinds of moving pieces to these horrible, unhealthy, bonded no-fits of, incredible pain. But what you need to realize is that the more you focus on them, whether you want to blame them, whether that's what you want to watch more videos for, or you write across the internet, it's your business, it's your choice, right? I'm not here to judge that. But I'm just here to remind you that all of that is going to disempower you even more. And that your empowerment awaits. You're turning into your own healing and recovery journey. Not focusing on the cluster B. Focusing on the cluster B is still abandoning yourself over and over and over again. And it's because they are representing not only is it about, like I said before, and I've said many times before, and you've heard everywhere, I'm sure, that you want to get that person back who you thought they were. Okay, but that is an illusion now. You couldn't know that in the beginning, but now you do know. Well, they're not really that person. And so it's about accepting that, and it hurts a lot. But people are, with codependency, are externalizers, and you're externalizing what you need to find in your own healing recovery journey by looking at self and focusing on yourself. You're still externalizing onto cluster Bs, and some people have been doing this for years. And I don't say that with any, judgment. But the bottom line message here that I hope people, if you don't already know it, you might be hearing it for the first time. So they did what they did. The relationship happened like it happened, and they did what they did, and that's their responsibility. No excuses for that. But now it's your responsibility to stop, which feels impossible, choose a different direction. So heading away from them in focus in every which way and manner, one step at a time, to focus on yourself so that you can find true empowerment for the first time in your life with building a healthy relationship to and with yourself as somebody with codependency. So, and in that process, when I work with clients, clients have to do the work. I can't guarantee anything if the client doesn't participate and do the work, but I can guarantee the clients that participate and do the work, if you resonate with me or whoever you go to seek help for, you need to get into that healing recovery journey where the way I work with clients is, yes, we talk a lot about the cluster B, etc., but we don't do that to the exclusion of you. And so that's really important, as opposed to what people are doing out there, because it is empowering even more the very person that so did wound you and beyond. And this is a repetition compulsion within codependency that is happening because of how you were hurt by a parent. Whether it was a one-time thing, big thing when you were really young, not a horrible thing a parent did, or whether you have a cluster B parent, or a cluster B and a codependent parent, or two cluster B parents, or alcoholics, substance abuse, just parents that are emotionally unavailable and or worse. And people are afraid to look at that, and people are afraid of that pain. But in the meantime, what's happening is you're in that codependent externalized pattern, the pattern of externalizing out to someone else what your inner child's really screaming about inside, where the pain is really coming from, but then it gets added to by the cluster B. But the whole narrative on the internet is when it's all aimed at the cluster B, and maybe people have to do that for a time for sure, but get into your own healing recovery journey, because the answers aren't going to come from them. Not going to come from continuing to pursue them. Reverse hoovering them, trying again. Oh, just thinking if they could get in therapy, everything would be fine. No, because even if they get in therapy, it's going to take freaking years. And here's the other thing. People are recovering and healing from BPD almost every day. People are in these journeys. I work with many clients with BPD. They are healing and they are recovering and they are aware and they are in action. And when people heal and recover from BPD, they do not still split. They change everything about, they heal and recover. And it means that their attachment style changes from disorganized, etc., to maybe not fully secure, but really it won't fall too far below secure, which people with codependency really don't have secure attachment either. So there's a lot of people with codependency who end up with a cluster B, and you don't know why, and you don't know what's going on in your unconscious mind, but it's because you're not really ready for the full-on mutuality of that kind of a commitment. And this isn't the same for everybody with codependency. But the bottom line here is, you write whatever you want on the internet, you do whatever you want, but here's a choice that's going to get you somewhere. Getting into your healing and recovery journey with someone, I'm out here if I resonate with you, but taking some action for you and stop that focus on them Because the more you talk about that, write about that on the internet, you're reinforcing it, retrenching it, re-experiencing it, and you're getting rewounded by it. And it's also a narrative where in codependence, people with codependency are disempowering themselves without realizing, not intentionally, not consciously, and giving all that power to the cluster B. They don't deserve it. So why, I ask with compassion and empathy to you as a codependent today, if this resonates with you. You may already know this. You may have already be in your own healing recovery journey. You may already have some of that focus off the cluster B. But why? Why don't you matter enough? Why are you so afraid of your own pain that now they've added to it, right? Why can't you put some trust in that turning in and focusing on yourself in a healing recovery journey, all those answers that you might pursue in that externalizing out codependent pattern that empowers the cluster B and disempowers you, that if you empower you in your own healing recovery journey, you're going to get to all those answers and then some. So think about that today. And like I've said in other videos, but I mean this from the bottom of my heart, to help people, which day, which moment of which day, and it's not going to be easy, are you going to say, I really had enough, this is enough, I matter more than this? The I meaning you. So I want you to ask yourself today, write it down and journal about it. Why don't I matter enough to stop this pursuit and chase? Why don't I matter enough to stop the focus on the cluster B? Why am I not important enough to myself to start getting into my own healing recovery? Forget about them for a little bit. It's not going anywhere. You have to work it all through. Why am I, meaning you, not choosing me first? What is it about me, meaning you, that I won't choose myself, meaning yourself, first right now? Right now going forward, because the answers are going to be found with a focus on yourself in your own healing recovery journey. You're just going to be on a hamster wheel trying to find the answers by externalizing, pursuing information to a degree. It's good to have some, obviously, but anything with cluster B focus, that's getting back on the hamster wheel. Any contact with them, etc. So ask yourself today, what are you so afraid of? Write it down. Why am I not caring enough, giving myself enough empathy to want to heal my pain instead of be hurt more by someone else? And it's not like that's a conscious, you want to be hurt more by someone else. No. But why don't you matter enough today to say today it stops? Because you have that ability. You have inside of you somewhere, though it may feel like not, you can empower yourself like that today. That's my challenge to you, for you. And anytime I say I or me, I mean you, for you to write that down. Is this going to be the day when you put you first? I really hope so, for your sake. If you haven't already put yourself first yet, today's the day. If you can't do it today, well, how about first thing tomorrow? What are you waiting for? Write down what you're most afraid of, because that's what's really blocking you right now. People with BPD NPD don't have anywhere near the power that the online narrative suggests. From people with codependency and people that have been really hurt by them, they don't have the power. Once you know what it is, once you've educated yourself a bit about it, but people do that and ignore self. People do that without educating themselves about what's going on for themselves and the codependency. And that whole pattern that's an unhealthy relational style too, born often out of insecure attachment, different attachment styles, and something that happened in your childhood. I think if you really think about it, and it might hurt, and I've done videos like this before and people tell me they cried, but the point is you need to get in touch with something. Why aren't you believing in you? Why do you continue to unconsciously add to your disempowerment by handing that power away to that cluster B that already did enough damage and hurt you enough. They're not that important anymore. You are. So why aren't you in touch with how important you are and how much you matter? Write that down and journal it today. I hope that helps somebody. Take care.